In today's FSI Spotlight, I'd like to introduce you to Jacob Bouer. He is a FinTech connector. He works at the Venture Center, and that is essentially a late-stage FinTech accelerator partnered with FIS as well as ICBA. If you're a late-stage FinTech and you're interested in being introduced to 100 financial institutions over a 12-week period, you need to introduce yourself to Jacob. You need to check out the Venture Center. So let's go ahead and jump into our spotlight today. Jacob, thank you for joining the FSI community and offering to do a spotlight with us here today. Tell us about the Venture Center and your role there as Director of Strategic Partnerships. What exactly is the Venture Center, and what are you guys doing in the FinTech space?
Yeah, thanks, Lance. It's a pleasure. And so I joined the Venture Center about 6 months ago. I'm actually in New York, but the Venture Center is based in Little Rock, Arkansas. We're a nonprofit of all things, entrepreneurial support organization. And so our main goal is to help people build businesses. So specifically in the community of Little Rock, Arkansas, we can help any type of business. But on the FinTech side of things, it's about helping these technology companies work with banks. It's all about bank enabling technology. And we're able to do that through our partners, FIS and the ICBA. We run 2 accelerator programs a year. So the FIS, the program is basically meant to help them fill the white space on their roadmap. And so we run the program for 12 weeks out of the year. Kind of the beginning of the program is helping them internally with FIS, get everything from compliance to legal to product in order so they can actually, successfully collaborate with them. But the other side of it is FIS customers. And so we're actually bringing through decision makers from banks large to small that work with FIS to come take a look at the technology companies that are going through our program. That's why we skew towards later stage companies, because these banks want to look at technology that they can actually digest and work with, and that informs FIS on the product decisions that they're going to be making go forward. With the ICBA, similar structure of the program. It's all about bringing community bankers through the Venture Center virtually, of course, to meet with our FinTech startups. That program actually begins in January. But it's a little bit different because community banks, they're not building a lot of their technology in-house, but what they're doing is buying a lot of this technology. And so I guess you could say the purpose of these 2 programs are different, but the structure is very similar.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Well, you have a really interesting background working with Money 2020 and then also plug and play FinTech.
Yep.
So how did you end up at the Venture Center? Tell us that story.
After I left a FinTech called ComplySci, they were a regulatory technology company. I wanted exposure to the industry as a whole. And so Money 2020 was a great place to do that. Every day talking to 6, 7 founders or commercial leaders or revenue leaders within these, growing FinTech companies about how they can make best at the largest FinTech conference of the world. And so, in the beginning, it was a lot about, understanding the event, understanding the benefits of that event and how you could, for example, build a brand or come home with a whole bunch of leads or, close business or treat your clients like gold. I mean, there's a whole list of things that you want to do at Money 2020. And that was kind of my job to guide people through that process. But after having so many phone calls with these really smart people running these awesome businesses, you really get to learn a lot more about their products and their business models and who they're selling to and actually helping them connect the dots. And that's where I think I found a lot of success because it became a lot more than just the event. It was a lot more about how can I help these people be successful. Plug and Play was a really interesting place for me to be. Rather than just working with the technology companies, Plug and Play opened my eyes to the bank side of things, the buyers who at the bank is actually making these decisions. What are they looking at? What technology is disrupting their day to day? And then, what's down the road? What's 5 years, 10 years down the road? And Plug and Play is an awesome place to do that. But I've found my home at the Venture Center. It's been amazing since I've been here. You can think of the Venture Center very broadly as the ultimate matchmaker between banks and fintechs.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I really do see you kind of in that matchmaking space between banks and fintechs, as you just mentioned. So
Yep.
what are your thoughts around that bank fintech partnership landscape or ecosystem? What's working? What's broken? Give us a few stories, perhaps, if you, without mentioning any names, tell us some more.
You're probably asking, why am I, taking advice from a 27-year-old on how to work with banks? Well, just to give you some context, through our relationships with FIS and the ICBA, we've got line of sight into many, many institutions and where they're at in their journey through innovation and what their technology needs are. And so basically what we're doing is taking these banks, understanding what they're after, and then going out and finding the fintechs and helping them solve these problems. But the, I think as a whole, the way this industry works isn't always, it's not making it easy for everyone to work together. I mean, you can really kind of do really simple things to give yourself a head start and making sure you're spending your time in the right place. For example, as a bank, when you go and talk to an early stage company, I think it's a matter of being really transparent with, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you here to learn? Are you here to, bring them on as a vendor? Are you trying to invest with them? And then make it easier to actually connect them with the right people internally, so they can, understand who they need to talk to, what processes and hula hoops they need to jump through. And then from the fintech standpoint, it's a matter of really doing your homework and understanding, well, what are these banks' needs? What is this, specific person's, are they the executor? Are they working on the strategic vision? Does the bank, for example, if you're a mortgage technology company, how many mortgages is the bank doing a year? How, is it a priority for them? And that's going to tell you, right off the bat, if you should be spending your time trying to sell to this financial institution. So I think it's, a matter of having the right transparency going into these conversations. You know, even with like vendor due diligence processes, you can't consider an early stage fintech, to have all the boxes checked and really kind of help them go through this process, because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money. And so from both sides, you're going to need to have patience. And that obviously ranges between the small to large institutions for sure.
So Jacob, you have a passion for helping community banks innovate.
Sure.
What kind of help do community banks need? What kind of trends might you want to highlight, or challenges or struggles that you want to bring to the surface for us?
So first off, community bankers are awesome people, and I've gotten to know a ton of them since joining the Venture Center, and that's why we love working with the ICBA, because we just get to meet awesome people from around the country. And community banks pretty recently actually got they were in the news a lot because they led the charge with these PPP loans, and they helped a lot of small businesses continue to do business, which is really important for our country, especially now. Um, so community banks historically have done really well because they know their customers, and that's kind of really important, to have that relationship with your banker. It's really important for any business, right? And so now with this digital transformation happening, community banks are changing the way they do business because they have to, right? It's not just the big banks that are embracing technology, but there are fintechs in this space, whether they're B2B or B2C, that are kind of raising the bar, if you will, in terms of how you have to treat your customers, how you have to use data, what kind of experiences they're going through. And so community banks have to keep up, and many of which are able to do so. I think many community banks are punching above their weight class. They're partnering with these fintechs. They're doing really awesome stuff. But I think it's look, there's over 4,000 community banks in this country. And so from a fintech perspective, if I'm a B2B fintech, that's a lot of green grass. And from a community banking perspective, there's a big difference from the most innovative bank to the least innovative bank. So it's a matter of kind of educating and really helping them implement this technology, rather than just looking at it or learning about it, but what can you actually do with it? And that's what we aim to do with the ICBA program. Is our goal is to help these community banks partner, invest, commercialize with these technology companies.
So let's bring it back to the Venture Center and the ICBA program.
Sure.
Tell me about the stakeholders and the ecosystem there at the Venture Center. tie that back to community banks for me and for our listeners,
Sure.
how does that all work?
Yeah, so I'd say we've got three main stakeholders. First and foremost is the state of Arkansas and the community of Little Rock. We work very closely with them. Um, Governor Asa Hutchinson was actually at our last demo day speaking to the program and what it's done for the community. We really focus on bringing economic and social change to the Little Rock area, not just through our fintechs, but through just regular businesses, because right, everybody needs access to resources and mentorship, and we aim to do that. So, of course, in a non-virtual world, our bankers are actually coming to Little Rock and experiencing this in person. So that's a pretty important aspect of what we do. The second is our banks, because our banks are coming here to learn and look at technology through a lens that is we kind of do a lot of the initial legwork for them to make sure that the meeting is worth everybody's time. And so that they're our stakeholder, because without them we're not walking away with the data that we need, and of course we're not walking away with deals for our fintechs, which is kind of our third piece, which are the founders and the fintech companies that come through our program. We think of this as like a late stage accelerator, because we're looking for bank enabling fintechs. And that means that these companies can actually work with your bank. This isn't their first rodeo. And that means that, when you come through our program, you're going to be meeting with, close to 100 institutions in a 12-week span. And so you better be able to take advantage of these meetings. And, we've seen a lot of our fintechs come through the program and come out on the other side with a very different pipeline than what they came in with.
That's impressive. So if I'm a fintech or just someone curious to learn more about the Venture Center, how do we leverage the interwebs to learn more?
Great question. So we do all that virtually. It's all done through Zoom. Spend a day with us. You'll talk to us. You'll talk to 10 awesome fintechs. At the very least, you're going to learn something. But likely you're going to find a fintech that you like and that you can probably work with. These companies are chosen because they can work with a bank, and we're going to look at your business. Like I said, we want to make sure that there's a fit here, and that it's worth everybody's time. And so we'll make sure that through that visit, you're going to get your value. You're going to bring the people at your company that you want to educate and you want to be involved in these decision making processes to work with technology companies. And so to visit, reach out to me. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can email me, which I'm sure we can put somewhere in the description here. We also have a form on our website on our corporate partnerships page. If you're a bank and want to understand how you can work with the Venture Center, you can absolutely do that. Bank visits for the ICBA program start in January, and so we're excited to get that going again. And if you're a fintech, the same goes for you guys. Reach out to us. Talk to us about how you can get involved in our programming. We've got a great team that runs that side of the business, and we'll make sure we connect you with the right people. Look, this group is for financial innovators, right? And so I also have a message for anyone who, is really interested in kind of helping banks and fintechs work together, to reach out to the Venture Center. We're always looking for good people. Part of my role is to expand the Venture Center and the financial institutions that we're working with. So we're always looking for more talent to help us do that. So, again, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email, and we'll see if there's a home for you here.
So in addition to your full-time role at the Venture Center, I noticed over here on LinkedIn, you also have a part-time role at Fintech Finance. Let's give them a little bit of a shout out. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about Fintech Finance and what you do there, and how those two roles, complement one another.
Sure. So Ali Patterson is awesome. Hey, Ali. He's a good friend. I actually met him originally when I worked at Money 2020, because they do the payments race. Love those guys. They're over in the UK. And so, especially during COVID, they need somebody on the ground in the US to do interviews when they need. And so I'm happy to be that guy, because of course they put my pretty face all over the internet and I get to meet awesome people. And so, working with them, for me, it helps me give my fintechs a resource if they're looking to do content and they're looking to get exposure. Fintech Finance is absolutely a great place to do that. And so, look, it's really about when they need me, I throw the jersey on and get in there.
Perfect. Sounds like a great relationship for sure. So let's go out a little bit more macro, and then we'll close. What is one specific trend, either in banking or financial services as a whole, or maybe in the fintech startup ecosystem, that you're most excited about for 2021?
That is a good question. Um, you know, this has been an ongoing trend even way before COVID-19, but the way that we open accounts is getting way smarter. And there's awesome companies like Mantle, for example, that are out there in the world that can really kind of help your bank bring on new customers. And people aren't going into the branch anymore. It's how do you not only market to those people, but how do you actually get them to open that account and start spending, whether it's with a credit card or a checking account, whatever it is. That's the important part is converting them and using technology to do so. And so that's what I think is the most interesting. This has been an ongoing trend. It's not like this is anything new, but I do think the opportunity for financial institutions to latch on to this is going to be massive and make the difference of the ones that are successful and the ones that are not.
Jacob, thank you so much for your time today, dude. I really appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for the chance, Lance. It's been great chatting with you, and I look forward to working with you in the future.